Hi there. I hope everyone had a great week. We're kind of a bit stressed at the moment because we're getting close to the wrapping of a big chunk of the development of Prison Tycoon under new management. The game that Abylight is creating for Ziggurat, um, the publisher. And you know, the game has to come out this summer, and we have to close as much as possible for everybody to enjoy. And as always, wrapping up development, it's stressful. It is so many things that have to work well, that work as it's supposed to. um, that it becomes a very stressful time for a developer, and because we have both roles in this life, developer and publisher. um, yeah, we get to enjoy the beauty of them all. And today we're going to be talking about physical distribution. Many of you ask about the importance of including it into a publishing deal, the option of having a physical edition of the game. I actually don't recall what I answered last week, but after consideration, I would say that it is tricky to include it at the get go. It's a decision that has to be made based on the release of the game and the fan base that it has, because we become a very digital society, and physical editions are very expensive to produce, and it can only be done when it makes sense. And for today, I left the juicy part, I would say, maybe, which is talking about the numbers. What do we mean when we say it is expensive to produce? Um, so we will talk about that. But I also wanted to give a scope of things. I wanted to talk a bit about digitally distributing a game and what it means in terms of revenue. Hi Nuru, thank you for for being here with me. So as always, if you have questions, don't hesitate to interrupt me and ask away. I wanted to talk about digital distribution and what it means for a developer and a publisher, and hopefully, in the hopes that we will be able to bridge the gap between, you know, people from the industry and people from outside of the industry. Meaning, you're a consumer, not a creator, right? Because it's not the same to work on something and consume something. I am an avid fan of shows, of TV shows. I enjoy them very much, and it's been one of my biggest hobbies for as always. However, I don't think I would be suitable to direct, act, script, writer, or do anything. Maybe I would be able to do some sort of producing, like assistant of the assistant of the assistant of the assistant producer, maybe. But I don't think I am prepared, just because I'm an avid consumer and a professional person, that I would be any good at doing a TV show, right? Which everybody can understand. When we come to video games, it's more or less the same. There's a lot of people that think that just because they consume video games and they've been playing them for always since they were kids, that they develop some sort of knowledge and understanding of what it is to actually do them, or value what they mean, or why this is worth more than this, right? And I'm not saying that you cannot judge what you enjoy the most or what you find more interesting. Another thing is to say this is better done, or this is better than, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to a deep forest here. My point is that just because you consume something doesn't mean that you will be able to do it and work on that industry, right? What happens with video games is the artistic component makes people very passionate about the industry part. That's not alluring. That doesn't have glamour, right? But the artistic part, that's very alluring and glamorous, and people get very passionate about the games that they like, right? So they feel that video game in some sort of way belongs to them, and that is true, because video game, because of the artistic part to it, belongs to everybody that enjoy it. However, keeping always in mind that the creation or the process to create something is different than that of someone receiving it. I'm making these comments because we find ourselves when we put something out, we find ourselves dealing with people that assume a lot of stuff, and mostly because they haven't had the chance to actually ask anywhere or to find out what it means. Just this week I had an interview with a journalist, and he was asking questions that if I would be outside of the industry, I maybe could have understood what he meant. But because I am in the industry, and he was asking a little bit of here with this and making a question altogether, I'm like, I don't know what you really want to know. I don't know what you're seeing from the outside inside, and I don't know how to answer this. Do you want me to tell you about this and that? And he's like, well, I want to explain how someone can understand what is your everyday, what is a developer's everyday life. And it's like, okay, well, developers sit in front of the computer and that's pretty much it. that's pretty much the whole day, right? But of course he didn't mean exactly that. So it is tricky. It is tricky to understand each other and to put yourself into the other person's shoes and get what they want to know, or what they are saying, or what they are trying to explain. Distribution is the part of the whole industry where you're in contact with the user, with the player. So understanding them and communicating well with them is super important. And it might be obvious, but it is not. It is not, because it requires an exercise of being able to put yourself into someone else's shoes that you don't know. You don't know who they are. You don't know who the player is. You've drafted a pseudo image of how this player must look like, but you don't know the people. You don't know who is personally playing your games, who is buying them, who is interacting with you on social media, on forums, anywhere, right? So it is complicated sometimes to be able to communicate in an effective way what you're trying to provide, what you're trying to distribute, for lack of a better word, to your audience, to the people that you actually think that this game would be great for, right? And this difficulty has to be taken into account, because knowing, or kind of drafting, having that idea of who these people are, has to necessarily inform how you're going to address them, how you're going to talk to them, where are you going to talk to them. And it is hard and it's complicated, and it's an exercise that requires a certain ability and sensibility to be tuned to your, that goes, actually. I was going to say that there is the people around you, but as a distributor, you want to reach outside of your comfort zone, who is the people that actually like you or whatever you do, right? You want to reach that people that don't know you yet, but they might like your game, and maybe possibly might like you in return, right? In digital distribution, as I've already explained in previous streams, is a shorter chain. We have putting the developer, who is the creator of the video game, at the beginning of that chain, where, because of many things, let's say that it doesn't require money from anybody, let's avoid that part at this moment. But the chain to distributing a game in this scenario with digital distribution has made the chain shorter. We have the first chain, the developer who makes the game. Then we might have a publisher. I've always thought, even when Abylight wasn't a publisher yet, I always thought that there was a role for publishers even in the digital era. Because at the beginning of it seemed that because developers found themselves into the option of going with or without a publisher, which was not possible before in the physical era, that publishers were not necessary anymore. And I personally always thought that was false, a false perception of the situation, a false reality. There must be a super brainy word for it. But the point is that just because you can access something doesn't mean that you're well prepared to do it. The ocean or the sea, here I'm besides the Mediterranean Sea, is always there, but that doesn't mean that I can cross it to Italy swimming, or to the Balearic Islands. Just because it's there doesn't mean that I can do anything with it, right? So in publishing and video games and digital distribution, that might be the same, for me, analogy. Just because a developer might be able to access the market or to digitally distribute its games, that doesn't mean that necessarily is prepared to do it and do it correctly, because creating is different than publishing, and it requires different abilities. But again, in digital distribution, this is an option, that if you as a developer are ready to make that investment and make that step, then you can do it. Prior to digital distribution, that was not an option. You needed a publisher. You needed someone with the key to the market, and a developer was not. Absolutely not. Okay. Then you go to the platform owner. Or, you could go directly to, internet and have your website and post there your game, which, funny enough, Abylight works with indie developers that publish like this, which is Loco Malito and Glitter 87. That's how they started doing and publishing their games as freeware, right? They did the video game and then they just uploaded to their website, and that's how they distributed their games. You could also go into commercial release and you would try to get your game into, you know, Nintendo platforms or Sony platforms or Microsoft platforms or Apple platforms or Google platforms, right? With Android, and Android is, you know, a sea of platform owners. Okay, access to the platform owners. Getting access to the platform owners, that was a step that it was a bit more complicated, because platform owners want to deal with seriousness, so they would have requirements like being a company, or, you know, having a certain degree of success in the industry or something. You know, they have their requirements, so you have to pass those. However, for digital distribution is always it has always been easier than it was just when it was just physical distribution, right? Through the years, their demands and their cuts and their technology has improved, has become better. And I'm gonna do a short cut because I need to attend to whatever Locomalito is texting me, so I'll be back. And I'm back, and I'm very sorry about that because, you know, it just you know, it's taxes season, so I needed to attend. So what I was saying is, digital distribution developer creator has the ability to go straight to the platform owner, which they become platform owner and distribution channel. Why? Because up until that moment, so up until they open or set up their digital stores like PSN, eShop, WeWare, DSiWare, Xbox. What was the name of Xbox? It was Xbox. I don't recall, but they all Microsoft also had their digital store, digital distribution. As you can see, I'm not really good. Exactly. Thank you, Long Play Games. Xbla. I really don't know what the name was, but yeah, it was that, and I think it had another name though. Microsoft, their first store. Anyway, they all had their store, right? ID at Xbox is the program that attends to indie developers. I don't think that's the name of their store. I don't think that's the name of the store, is it? ID at Xbox? I would think and say that ID at Xbox is the program that Nintendo has to attend or give assistance to indie developers. Maybe I'm wrong, but ID, I think it means indie developer at Xbox. Oh yeah, okay, so, okay, Long Play Game says that, well, the store is just the Microsoft store, they're bad at names. Yeah, they've shown, because they keep switching, like 360 and then 1 and now it's X or S or whatever. Anyway, so we have that they set up their own stores where, you know, they are not only the owners of the platform itself, but also the digital store where consumers go and buy the games, and those games are gonna be of their own and third parties, right? I'm not gonna mention even the structure, what it is to be a first party, second party, or third party. Let's say that their games is, you know, the games that they also produce, because all of them produce games, and games that are not produced by them, which we're gonna call third party games. And that gives the impression that, you know, straight. So there's only like two people minimum that need to be involved for a developer to publish a game and to sell a game into a digital store with, you know, not just putting it on their website, right? So in a digital store, here is, I'm talking console, but it could be also mobile, because also mobile, you could, I guess you could publish your APK online, but it would have more chances of success commercially if you would go through a platform owner, a store. I'm thinking Huawei, I'm thinking Samsung, I'm thinking Google Play, but Google Play is a bit different, right? Anyway, so we would have the cost here of the development cost, and we are gonna avoid who pays for that at this point. We have the option to go with the publisher, and then we go straight to the market, right? And in this case, in digital distribution, the market is the store of the platform where you want to publish your game. So every title that is distributed in a digital store has two people to pay, right? Well, three. Taxes, straight taxes to consumers that actually the platform owner will take care of directly, because he is also the owner of the store, and he will have to be, well, I'm saying he, but it could be an it, right? It will be responsible to liquidate taxes wherever necessary, because it is the responsible of the store and selling it to consumers, so it is the one that has to pay taxes where taxes are due, right? On consumption, yeah, like VAT and all that kind of taxes, right? And then once that is taken out, we have the what is left. In each country will be different, probably, from the price to consumer. And the platform owner will take a cut. I don't know of any platform owner that don't take a cut. And there's been some changes in terms of how much they take and when do they take it. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that, but probably it was pretty open. When Nintendo came out with their digital store, you had to make a certain amount of copies before you saw any money. And if you ask me why, I don't have a good answer, because I don't understand why someone that is so powerful would be so bullying in terms of, okay, maybe for them, okay, I'm venturing an answer. So maybe they are so big that having to deal with small sales, it is so cumbersome and it's so costly that it's not efficient for them to take to pay the royalties due to the developer, right? Who is the only party that they are dealing with in this case on sales on their digital store. And it has happened to us. Of course it has. We're Abylight. We've done everything right and wrong. So we did have, we actually had 2 games that didn't go over the threshold, the established threshold. In both instances, it was very painful. And we had a 3rd game that had to go and was going to be the same case. And what we did was we calculated and we said, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna pay them ourselves, because it's gonna be more efficient for us to pay the quantities. Yeah, it was really sucky policy. But what we did was, okay, we need to go over the threshold. We need, I don't know, 300 or 400 units. So what we did was, okay, we're gonna give them for free. We will pay them. We will pay for them, because otherwise we will lose all the others that were sold. So it was more efficient for us to pay the full price of those units, of those 300 or 400 units, to go over the threshold and then get the amount, and start receiving royalties from that moment on, than actually let it not go over the threshold. Because the threshold also was time. It had time. You had a time to go over the threshold. It wasn't like whenever your game goes over the threshold, you will receive your share. Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it's just that they have so many NDAs that I am not sure what is possible to share or not in these kind of situations. But Nintendo's a partner, has changed and evolved a lot. We as company have suffered. I would say that we should have closed the company twice in two different moments, just because of Nintendo actions directly to us. Well, one would be this policy, and then how bad the WiiWare was, and that then we should have closed. And the second one was, yeah, I took it personally then. maybe that story is for another day. Anyway, let's go back to the point, which was digital distribution. You have just the platform owner. They pay taxes, to consumer taxes. They pay taxes where they get them, and they liquidate it to each country. And then you, right? You as developer. I've said already, it is possible to have a publisher, and I believe that even in digital, publishers have always had a role to play, but there was a time when people thought that it was not necessary. And funny enough, the thing is that when this happened on video games, it didn't caught me off guard, because it's something very similar to what happened on actually art. And art galleries. Maybe some of you remember, probably not. But I come from a family that had an art gallery, and in the, what was it, the 90s or the early 2000s, probably the 90s, when internet was exploding. There was a lot of internet or artists that thought that they didn't need the art galleries anymore, because they could showcase their art on the internet, and they didn't need an art gallery anymore. So that shifted perceptions and what it really meant to be an art gallery. And in this case, an art gallery is what publishers do. Art galleries used to have a group of artists that they would promote, sustain economically throughout the years, and they would be the main display of their artwork, right? It would be like exclusive deals. And publishers, that's what traditionally did, right? Publishers, although it is getting a comeback, publishers are funding more and more games, which is amazing. I think it's very good news, because there's been times where there was no funding whatsoever. You had to pay everything, and on top of that, anyway. So artists thought that they could, they didn't need the art galleries, because they could showcase their art. But what ended happening is that a lot of artists didn't have that relationship, that sustainability provided by art galleries. A lot of art galleries disappeared. I'm not saying that it was just because of internet, but of course there was a shift on the market and how we perceive art, and of course there's people that still buy art to hang on their walls, but there's been a shift. Art galleries as a business, I'm gonna venture and say that died probably 20 30 years ago. as a business, right? So it had its peak at the mid, you know, the 1900s to the, yeah, that was the century of art galleries. Anyway, so having that on my back, when we got into, getting ourselves onto publishing, I was well aware that it was tough work and that it was a lot to do. And still, we still work with publishers ourselves because, there's bigger fish and you have to be a team player. Absolutely. So, to the cost. If you have a publisher, from the quantity paid by the user, we know that taxes are taken away. Then comes the cut of the platform owner, and then if you have a publisher, then there's going to be the split between the developer and the publisher, right? So as you see, there's only 3 people, really, or 4 people if you count the governments with their taxes, that take take a piece of the price cake, right? That's not too many people. If we move that equation to physical distribution, that gets crazy. That is a completely different structure. We go back to old times. And we still have the developer, of course. We do have a publisher. We need a publisher. We need someone that knows what it's doing. We have then the platform owner, which is the game that you're going to be distributing, right? We will need also the manufacturers, that it can be one by one for every item, or you can work with in between part. I mean, there's several options, but manufacturing, that's gonna be a big part of this, right? Hanging probably from, well, probably not, hanging from the publisher, right? We have the platform owner who's gonna sell you either the discs or the cartridges, or allowing you to do it. No, that's not true. They are the only ones that do it. You cannot do it. You have to go through their channels to get your copies done. Shipping back and forth here and there, that's also super important, and it's not a small cost. It is a very important cost of the whole operation. We also have distributors. Now, remember that when we said that in the digital world, we have the platform owner doing several roles, right? We have the platform owner being the platform owner, the owner of the store, which is the distribution, but also the retailer, because they have the users going to them, to their store, and they are the ones deciding what the user is going to be seeing. The user, player, consumer, right? So in the physical world, all these profiles, all these activities are done by different people. We have the stores, the physical stores, that, funny enough, they can have also a digital store mirroring their physical store, or they can be, digital stores that are smaller but local. Or no, not really. I think it's more, stores with their digital store, right? We have the distributor. The distributor is the person or company that will provide your copies. If you're a publisher, the publisher is gonna sell the copies to the distributor, and the distributor is going to, in this age and era will mean to ship the copies to either stores, digital stores like Amazon or eBay, although you don't ship them to eBay, but you publish them, you go and distribute it there, and the physical stores, right? And then we have the physical stores, the actual physical stores. So you see, and never forget that the government will never miss their taxes. So even if you don't count them, they are there, and you have to pay them. You have to, from whatever price you're putting to your game, you're going to be paying a percentage of that to the government, directly with the VAT or indirectly with, whatever winnings you have. Okay, so that's the first cut. And depending on which countries, we can go from 20. I mean, I'm not doubting how much is Spain. I know that Spain is 21%, but I think that there's another country in Europe that is higher even than that. I know that in Germany they lowered because of the pandemic, and they actually in Germany they are very cool because cultural items have a very affordable VAT. And I remember when I used to live in Germany, I would love to go to the library. I would love to go to a lot of cultural places because it was more, I don't know, it was fun. It was affordable. It was good. It was interesting. And here is like, not so much. So I think now Germany it's around 16. They used to be 19 and now it's 16, maybe even lower for, well, I know it's lower for books. I don't know for video games. Maybe it's 16, maybe it's even lower. I don't know. But that goes, the whole range. Depending on where you're selling, you will have to, pay the taxes according. And whatever is left, you pay the platform owner. Remember, you always pay the platform owner. No matter what you do, you always pay to a platform owner. And then you have to pay the distributor. And the distributor either is going to cost you both itself and the store, or might be different. Normally, I would say the distributor cut includes the store. So Nuru is, hopefully we pay the team at some point. Oh, yeah, at the end of it. For sure. If you mean the team, the developer team, absolutely, at the end of it, whatever is left. So, the distributor, that includes the store, and you have to imagine, having a physical store these days is super expensive. And it's really complicated. So you have to give a margin that it's gonna make their time. It's make it worth it for them. If you don't give enough margin to the distributor and the chain that is between the distributor and the store, they are not gonna buy your games. But this part is very tricky because, when you go to MediaMarkt, to the GameStop, and you see a game discounted, do you think that it's them that is losing? They are not really losing. They are earning less. I mean, of course, there are discounts when they're in clearance, 70% or something like that. Of course, they are losing. Well, maybe it depends. We'll talk about that. Brett Hill. So Long Play Games. Thank you for explaining. Is Brett Hill, that thin slice on each end of a loaf. Oh, I love that. When it's, a seedy Brett Hill, then I love it because it has more seeds than a middle loaf. But I understand what you mean. Thank you for explaining. So this is very important. And this is what happens in certain points of the video game industry's history, what happens with the copies that are physical copies, which take, it costs money to produce, because I said the platform owner gets paid, but it gets paid at the beginning of it. It always takes its cut, no matter if you sell it or not. They are never gonna lose anything. So the distributor, there was a time that distributors would, they would sell through catalog to their retailers, and they would get an estimate on sales, right? So it's a shop or a store, how many copies, da 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 da. But the thing is that they would order to the publisher the amount of copies, but there would be a clause. There would be a clause that would say, okay, I am not actually buying these copies. I am making a pre-order, so to speak. And if I don't sell them, I have 3 months or 6 months or I don't know, X months, because yeah, and I will be able to return them to you. If I don't sell these copies within X amount of time, I don't have to pay them to you. I will get the money back. I think that's actually what happened with the game E.T. of Atari, that they produce, and we know that they like duplicated like 1 million or something like that, which was like really crazy number at the time. And what happened is that they distributed it, and it got recalled. I mean, it got returned. It got returned, and it got to a point where, if you don't sell them and you get these goods returned, what do you do with them? You cannot do anything. So in the case of ET, they got buried in the desert. In other cases, they might go to clearance, or they just take space on your warehouse. If you have a warehouse, that means money. That costs money. And even though you might want to have a warehouse to store stuff, storing doesn't produce money. And you're trying to run a business that makes money. So having a warehouse full of stuff, unless you're a collector or you're an antique, these people that sell antiques and they need to store them because whatever, having a storage is a problem. You don't want to store. That's not a business. The storing is not a business. The storing doesn't make money. What makes money is selling, is moving. So you don't want a big stock. You want stock zero. And I'm not gonna get into logistics and what it means and how production has shifted and changed through the years. But some years ago, production would be based on stocking, and the goods would be moving and there would be no breakage into the chain. But it would be based on warehouse to warehouse, where it has changed into me as a client. I have stock zero. I don't have anything on my store. But if I need it, I call, and my logistic partner will deliver it to me like this, right? Yeah, I'm gonna stop that conversation because it's too technical on the logistics part, and I don't think anybody here is super interested in that. But the point is, or we continue to the story and to the line of cost and people involved. You don't want to store anything, and storing is expensive. Distributors, they had a clause that said that they had time to sell or return, which meant that maybe they paid for that stock that they took, if they took it, but they had the chance to return it, right? Nowadays, I cannot say that nobody makes deals like that because I don't know everybody's deals, but I can tell you that I haven't signed a deal like that, and I am very aware of this fact that it used to happen where stores would have the chance to return the goods and the publisher would have to take them. But I haven't signed any deal like that, and actually that's what I would think, or I would say that limited run games and companies like Limited Run have made possible, because what they do is they amp up the need to collect. They amp up the need of the user to acquire. They give it a limited time to acquire. So they put the maximum pressure possible into the user and also communicating that not only you can only acquire this in this limited time, but there's also a very limited amount of copies, right? Of course, over time, they are growing, they are more able. I don't know how many copies they produce as limited editions, but I would assume that it's higher than whatever they started doing. Because when you don't have experience, you are very scared of what's gonna happen with whatever you don't sell. You don't want to end up with 3,000 copies of anything in your home or in your warehouse. I mean, I don't know that many developers have a warehouse, but you could surprise me. Anyway, so deals nowadays, because of a structure too, are not made with the return policy, but I cannot talk on behalf of someone like Namco that moves like really big quantities of video games, and they distribute like it's a titan of physical distribution still. Or well, Nintendo. I had the feeling that Nintendo could put their name to a shit, and it would get sold anyway. So yeah. Next point. Next, people in chain. I talked about the manufacturers. That's very important because when preparing an edition, like for example the last one we've done, which is Curse Castilla, of course you know what it is. You would be amazed of even the smallest thing, how long it takes to produce. And I'm talking not only to actually print the stickers, but I'm also talking about designing the sticker. So what kind of size, what design, what finished, and here and in the details is where the devil lies. I don't know if you have that expression, but we do, which means that it's the you have the 80% done in the 20% of the time, and the rest, the 20% of the project takes the 80% of the time. And I feel like physical distribution is exactly that. It took us producing, designing Curse Castilla collector's edition. It took us good 3 months. Let me see. No, 4 months. It took us 4 months to produce all the assets. And mind you, we had already some produced from previous editions. And still, it took us 4 months, 3 people working on that. Full time. And Longplay says, yep, the devil is in the details. Thank you. We also have the first 80% takes 80% of the time. The second 20%, I think the sentence is a bit because the first 80% takes 20% of the time. The second 20% takes the other 80% of the time. Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. No, maybe I don't know. I think that's what I said. But it is true. yeah, it is. It is true, and with Hyperlight Drifter was even worse in the sense that it was this team. It was the first project of this full team that now is dedicated to do the physical editions of Abylight Studios. And when I thought that we were done, it's when the job started. It's when the work started. And it was crazy. It took us so long. I mean, Hyperlight Drifter Special Edition for collectors. It took us maybe a year to produce. It wasn't full time. It got like don't stop, don't stop. It was back and forth. And then when we really got into, okay, this has to go out, December 8th, it was like 4 months. 4 months of full on working on the production of the items of the collector's edition of Hyperlight Drifter. But we were working on it already a year prior. So it might have been like 16 months production. I mean, honestly, I don't think we're gonna really make any money out of those productions, but they're beautiful. So, and one has to be seeing the long run. Anyway, manufacturers. Working with manufacturers is intense. It can be very challenging. That's why it's good for us to have opened this new area, this new business, because now we have a team around it, and it's the knowledge that we are using and reusing and adapting, and we're not forgetting about it from time to time. We're really using it and getting a speed on it. But it's difficult. It requires experience, because they talk differently. These people talk differently. You say, I want a sticker that is 6 centimeters diameter, and then they ask you stuff that is like, why are you using these words? I don't understand what you're saying. So, experience. Sorry. Nuru, how do you decide when to go for a physical copy? Some range of digital sales over time? Okay, for me, deciding to go physical for Curse Castilla or Hyperlight Drifter, it was a no-brainer. I had to do it, right? On Switch. And we haven't announced it, but of course we're gonna do Super Hydora. I mean, it's not announced, it's not done yet, it's nothing, it's something that makes just total sense, right? But I'm gonna tell you something. I am currently hoping to work with a developer. Well, I'm actually hoping to work with a couple new developers, right? But this one, it just so special, so beautiful, so new. And when I saw it, I'm like, we definitely gonna do a physical edition of this. I am so sure about it. I don't know how many sales we're gonna make. I can only forecast, estimate, imagine, and my guess might be a little better than someone else's. But at the end of the day, is publishing video games is a world of chance. You could very well go to the casino and have the same success. So for me, I see a product and I think it makes sense. This will work. Some because of their numbers or of their prestige, and some because I think, okay, this is a new game and it's so special. I know that this will work. Well, intuition, nah, maybe. I think it's experience on there's certain elements to these games that I'm evaluating, and I think that these elements will go very well with our audience, and they are new games, unreleased. Right now, I'm working with games that have been released for a long time, right? Curse Castilla was originally, the first version of it was released in 2012. We released the commercial edition in 2016. And we're publishing the special edition, collector's edition for the Switch in 2021. So it's a collector's thing, right? Hyperlight Drifter was published in 2014. I don't recall exactly. No, 14. I don't know. Was it 14? Maybe no, 16. I think. But I don't recall exactly when it was first released. But Definitely, we released it in 2019 on Switch, and we did the physical edition in 2020 December. So it's like, but these games that I'm evaluating right now, and hoping to sign, it's something that I can offer also to my developers, right? I can do it. I've been working at it. I've been working on setting up chains of distribution, our own stores, working with physical stores, working with limited run. I'm working on that, and I think that it's something that, of course, it's not gonna make sense for all the games, but maybe it will for these games. I mean, I wish that all that I thought turned to happen, but that's not it. And not because I wish it happens necessarily. I have to be humble on that. I cannot say, oh yeah, I think it and oh happen. No, it takes a lot of work. It takes chance, good chance, not the bad one, because that also exists. And we've had our fair share. So, in this case, it's just that I see it. I see it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it will happen. But you know what? Another way to answer you is also, once you have the game that either is asking you for a physical edition, or you want to physical edit it, publish it or distribute it, then what you can do is create a mockup and see how your partners, your distribution partners, react. Are they interested? How many copies would they like to distribute? That might give you an idea whether it makes sense or not. And in that way, it's not just your intuition, but it's okay, this will have some distribution. So okay, we were on the manufacturers. Manufacturers have their own language. They their own specifications. Colors is a nightmare. There are different kinds of colors. CMYCK. Oh my god, it is this. One would think that Pantone would be like standard, but it is not, and it depends on where the color is applied, either on paper or enamel or tin or whatever, plastic. It affects obviously the color and how it looks, and it is tricky, to say the least. It is like super tricky. And then not only it is tricky, but even testing can be expensive, because in order to test something, you might have to produce it, and putting the machines to produce whatever you want to test would require a mold to do it, and that mold will determine that you're not able to change it, because if it's done, you will have to pay. And just to get you to give you an idea, a mold to produce this beautiful thing, let me show you. The mold to do this, I think. A mold to do this, which is obviously very special. It was created by our artist Maria Ayuso, under the direction of Alberto Gonzalez, our publishing producer. The mold to do this costs 500 euros, just the mold. So you gotta be very sure that you want this, because the first one costs 500 euros, and then it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper the more units you do. All this to say that testing is tricky. So there are things that in order to test them, you have to already be decided on how it's going to be, right? And then the coloring, I mean, in this case, also experiences a degree, you know. In this case, I think that the coloring was just beautiful. And it came out perfectly. I mean, this is the test that they sent us, and I think it is magnificent, you know. But when we were producing Hyperlight Drifter keychain, we had to change. I mean, obviously not the format, not the design of the piece, but we had to change the colors of the animal. Yeah, animal. Because once printed, yeah, I think that's the word. It got like it didn't look like we wanted to, so we had to choose a different colors from, I don't know what was the date, but we had to change the colors because it didn't look good. Thank God at the end of it ended up well. On Hyperlight Drifter, I mean, but you know, this is tricky. Also, we are working with manufacturers that are not nearby. I know that it could be better for, you know, social responsibility, the company, blah blah blah, and all that stuff, to work with local producers of this kind of goods. But the thing is that because the first physical editions that we did were for PS4, and we did it with a company that actually has Sony in it in its name, but it's not actually Sony. I guess it's a Sony company, but they actually produce for other platforms. And I already, you know, established a relationship with that manufacturer, which is not really a manufacturer, it's like a coordination of manufacturers. So anyway, because we did several years ago our first editions with them, I decided that it was more efficient to do this, do the Switch editions also with this Sony company, which is called Sony DADC. There's in Europe and in America. I find that they are an amazing partner, which is not to say that we sometimes struggle with certain things, but they are an amazing partner. They are very helpful. You know, they take care of a lot of stuff, organizing the pickup. I mean, I have to still do my part as publisher on the picking up, but at least I don't have to go to Osaka myself. You know, they have people that actually pick up stuff there all the time. So, and then they pick it up, they take it to their warehouse and their assembly lines, and they have everything all together sorted out. And yeah, and doing some comparison pricing here and there, they were very effective. They were very cost effective. So that's the reason that we are producing like this, and it has its challenges. However, they are not the producers. For example, the producers of the paper stuff, I believe it's a company in Poland. Other parts I think are made in China. So it's a little bit spread out the production, but yeah, it's under a lot of supervision. But yeah, all these people take a cut. Well, you know, they cost money. So we have that, and then the publisher takes, of course, their cut, and then it comes to the developer. And here, the developer, one has to take into account how many people take part on it, how many people are involved on this, and and I want to say, let me, because I'm not really good at numbers, believe it or not. But we've changed a lot. Like in the previous era, a developer might see very little from each copy sold, and the gain would be made on volume. Nowadays, currently, physical editions leave a lot more margin to the developer because it is a bit shorter than it used to be, and publishers and distributors don't have that much power anymore. And it's the cut is these editions are very limited. So yeah, it's like, even though we act as a publisher, in the editions that we do physical, we're very involved on the creation and the development, and we have a long-standing relationship with developers. So the deals are a lot more beneficial for the developer. And as you know, we are publishers and developers. So yeah, it's yeah. At the end of the day, all we do is to be able to do more video games in whatever form possible. And guys, until here today, I finished the physical distribution part. I told you all the people. I hope I haven't forgot anybody. I you know what I wish? I wish I would have like a screen, like a blackboard or whiteboard where I could, do numbers and talk and do like a yeah, like when I used to teach, I like to use it, the whiteboard. I end up writing stuff on it. But I don't have it. So you just have to imagine whatever I say, and that's it. And guys, this is ending soon. Thank you so much. Long Play Games and Noru, you've been amazing for this for the second part of the physical distribution. Funny enough, there's I know that there's a lot of misunderstanding and yeah, and lack of knowledge, but maybe whenever we hit those 10,000 million followers, there will be questions about it, and happily we will answer. Thank you very much for joining me in this time, and see you next week. Stay tuned.